A fold is a name for a group of sheep.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I'd like to-
Yeah, finish this if you did.
Yes, sir. I use technical use. I know too much, I'll move fast. Score a goal for me.
What's the blocker sheet? Like a package sheet?
There are some questions on the back. There are 2 questions on the back. Looks like most of you are ready. Well, there are a few questions I want to, we want to go kind of right to the heart of it. What's the meaning of the poem? The meaning of the poem involves what was the purpose of the poem, the main idea, and what was the experience of life that he's trying to. He's clearly retelling a story that was in the Bible, but what is he doing with it? What is he trying to convey with it? Anybody have an idea? Julia, do you know what he might be getting at?
I guess like just showing how violent and like bloody they got destroyed.
It definitely does a good job of that, yes, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, he emphasis on, like, how fast this happened, because he's like, and.
Oh, good.
Like, he keeps going.
Oh, that's a really good point. That's called, oh gosh, what's the name of that? Sorry, I can't even remember the name of it, but there's a term for that, the repetition of words. And that's a really good point. That's an example of the use of diction. It's a rhetorical device, and it helps create speed. Very good. No one mentioned that earlier. But what's he trying to get at? And you mentioned how quickly it happened. Anything you can add to that? Well, yes.
That it was very grand, and, you know, it was like on a large scale, so obviously it was a giant army that was
Well,
wiped out.
let's go back to that. I think that's another good point. The first two stanzas, at least, tell us something about the Assyrians. Now, what does it mean, the Assyrians? There's 185,000, the Bible
It's the
says.
it's the big Kahuna, it's the king, it's the head Assyrian.
Like you said, if you said Washington's army across the Delaware, or you say Washington crossed the Delaware, it wasn't just Washington, it was his army, but sometimes we refer to the whole
Or Napoleon
because of the part.
lost at Waterloo.
Napoleon
That's-
invaded Russia. Right, it wasn't just Napoleon all by himself. That's what it's getting at. Well, let's go back to that. How does he create that, that, in the first two stanzas, that size, the idea of size and power? Dave, go ahead. Yeah.
Like the wolf on the fold, so like obviously with great like strength and speed, and how
Okay,
they,
explain, yeah, go ahead, explain the fold part.
well, the fold would be like the people they were attacking, being like
Right.
weaker.
Why did he choose sheep, and why did he choose a wolf?
Because of God, and Jesus is the shepherd of the sheep.
Okay, but in this case, how does that disparity really emphasize what you said earlier, the size of the
Sheep
sheep?
are
It makes them look weak.
Yeah, the
are
sheep-
entirely defenseless.
Absolutely, so just like the sheep, Jerusalem was absolutely defenseless. What else in that first stanza, one of the similes, expresses that another disparity, not only in strength, but in what?
Like stars on the sea in size and numbers, because it was like,
Yeah.
it had so many living spirits, it was like the amount of stars in the sky.
Right, and notice the first simile of the second stanza, what does that say about exactly what you're talking about? Like leaves of the forest when summer is spring.
There's also a massive amount of, you know, big banners that they were carrying.
Right. It's innumerable, you couldn't count the leaves of the forest. So that's what's on the side of the Assyrians, and the way the Jerusalem stacks up against them like innocent sheep. But the angel came, and what did he do to destroy them? Yes.
It says that, he breathed in the face of the foe as he passed,
Alright.
and they went deadly with chill, and their hearts heaved and grew still.
All right, so where else does it mention the effort that God put into this destruction? Like that's how hard, that's the
It's at
effort.
the end.
Yeah, what does he say?
And the might of the Gentile unsmote by the sword hath melted like snow in the glance of the Lord.
What is it saying there when he says in the glance of the Lord, and melted like snow?
Not even fully looking at them.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like on the side.
It was no big deal.
Exactly.
He just-
Also-
He just got rid of them.
So the poem is set up as an uneven match, right? The army of Assyria and this poor little sheepfold of Jerusalem. And they're right, it was an uneven match, but not in the way that he
Flips it
describes
on
it.
its head.
He flips it. It was uneven because they had no chance against the angel. Yeah, how many angels were there?
Just one.
Just one. Didn't take 185 angels.
It also even emphasized with that, with the idea of the might of the Gentile unsmote by the sword. They didn't
Exactly.
even fight.
That's right. Very
Smote
good.
as in, smite.
They were
Right.
unpledged.
Very good, excellent. Well, let's take it one step further. Well, first of all, I just want to point out, look at the destruction on the battlefield. Look at the way the army was armed. It says, well, first of all, the soldiers died, but also the horses died. And then it says, it talks about the mail, the tents, the banners, the lances, and the trumpet. So they had every modern weapon of war at the time on their side. And it still was useless against the one angel and his one breath. But it didn't extend to just the military. What other aspects of Assyria were affected by this devastating loss?
The people back
The
at home.
widows,
Well, what about?
like all their husbands died.
And you think of the children along with them. So the children and the wives.
Asher referenced the Assyrian.
Yeah, and I think it's a town, and was a town in Assyria.
It says the windows of Asher are loud in the
Yeah,
wail.
so it goes all the way,
And idols are broken.
exactly, so that refers to the
Perhaps it's such a crushing defeat, it caused them to lose all faith in their gods.
the religion. Now think about Moses and the 10 plagues. Well, who was God really? Who did God ultimately destroy in those 10 plagues?
The Egyptians.
The Egyptian religion, because almost every one of those plagues was directed towards the Nile River was a god. You know, they worshipped all sorts of things, and he focused on these individual aspects of their worship to destroy them. And he does the same here. The idols, the religion is affected. It's nothing. Again, the final thing. What do you think the ultimate? What do you think the ultimate meaning of this is? That it started with what you said, but could you put together? In fact, why don't you write it down as we finish this up? What is now the meaning is the hardest thing of all, because it's everything. It's not just the purpose. It's not some lesson like don't mess with God; He'll get you. It's not trivial like that. That's true, but it's said in a trivial way. So a poem is a lot more than that. It's a whole experience. So what is the meaning of this experience? Your statement has to incorporate what Nick helped us with that get started with. You know, this size, this disparity. Write down what you think the meaning, if you haven't done it already. Sort of summarize putting this together. It's just that last question, so you may already have it written. Anybody want to share putting together what we just said? You might need to edit or modify what you said. How about it, Caleb? Given what we just discussed about this war between
Yeah,
Syria and God.
so, I mean, I don't exactly know, but what I would say is like, because the event was so large and like affected everything outside of it, not just like, it wasn't just a small thing. This author obviously, or poet obviously like wanted to express it after he heard it, how fast paced and like, I don't know, it's kind of like how fast he's talking about it is like the excitement of like his faith.
And I think the focus really is on God here, and the power of God over the greatest, this great army and all its advantages were nothing, as we said earlier. It took a glance, it took a breath, it melted like snow. Snow doesn't have a chance in the hot sun, and that's what you got here. It was an inevitable thing. You did a good job. I heard a lot of things there that I had not thought of. Like the end part I thought was very helpful. So, guys, I hope you're listening to each other, because several of you really helped carry that, and it was well done. And all of you, if you want to do well, are going to have to develop that. So good job with that. Just a reminder, you're bringing your review sheet tomorrow. And we have our test on Thursday of next week, and the reading is Wednesday. So we're flipping that. Yeah,
How far do we need to read to, like the end of the book?
14.
The 14.
Yeah, up to 14. So this will be the 6th.
7 is already like in the middle.
Yeah.
There's only 21 chapters.
Yeah.
There's only 21 chapters.
Oh, nice, you don't have to read 2/3.
How I'm gonna give you something.
Well, we only have to read 2/3 of the book. Two sections.
Right, so like for.
We may,
So no.
depends on what I do with the reviews.
Actually, are we not reading?
What I want, there's two things I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask for right now, half a page discussing what he says about the poem about the month of October. What is his opinion, give some facts, give some details, kind of poem.
But like, for example, it's trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that whole thing.
I might be like.
We could do it.
It might, I don't know, honestly. He might have suffered like under the president.
Mr. Powell, I'm gonna stop the video.
Thank you.